Giant Bull was unable to breathe due to the helicopter pressing down on him. The woman wanted to go help, but obviously, all of this was in vain. Suddenly, the helicopter moved. The woman looked up at the sky in surprise, only to see a giant gorilla appearing in front of her. The helicopter in his hands was like a toy. He was actually King Kong. King Kong was the ruler of this island. He battled giant lizards every day to defend his home. But suddenly, human visitors disrupted the peace. Just a few hours ago, the woman came to this place with the military to investigate, thinking it was just a routine investigation. But to their surprise, the military ordered to bomb the island. The loud explosions made the animals panic, and the soldiers showed evil smiles. The continuous explosions foreshadowed their tragic fate. The soldiers on the plane were enjoying the explosions outside. Unexpectedly, when one turned his head, he saw a large tree speeding towards him, directly piercing through the helicopter. The other soldiers were still stunned. They were snatched up by a big hand. In moments, the soldiers were shaken up and down. One soldier fell directly into King Kong's mouth. Under the setting sun, King Kong's figure was like an immovable mountain. The soldiers' faces were filled with shock, but the next moment, they still surrounded King Kong. King Kong watched as the airplanes did not move, but the army fired first at this moment. Bullets poured out continuously, but hitting King Kong was like scratching an itch. No effect at all. With a roar from King Kong, the battle was officially underway. He punched and instantly smashed the airplanes, then pounded his chest in anger towards humans. Next, he stomped on a crashed fighter jet. King Kong's body was large, but he was incredibly agile, effortlessly leaping to make two planes collide in the air, and the surviving pilots were kicked by him. Then, he reached down and scooped up a plane, using it as a weapon. The helicopter unit was completely defeated. After the battle, King Kong left. The colonel gathered all the soldiers. Looking at the fallen comrades' nameplates, he became more determined to seek revenge. With a heavy heart, he dug graves for his comrades. Afterward, the team continued their journey. They had to pass through a bamboo forest. A soldier stopped to drink water along the way. The next moment, he seemed to see something. His eyes widened in surprise. The water bottle fell to the ground. A few soldiers heard the commotion and turned back. The soldier was pierced by a bamboo spear. They looked up along the bamboo pole. It was a giant spider. The bamboo poles were its legs. The soldiers started shooting frantically at the spider. The spider spat out large webs and used the webs to pull the soldiers up. Seeing the soldiers getting closer to the spider, they frantically cut the webs. In the next moment, the soldier experienced a high-altitude fall. The soldiers on the ground quickly chopped off the spider's legs and continued to shoot at the spider relentlessly. Under the continuous attacks, the spider couldn't hold on any longer and fell heavily to the ground. The experienced colonel quickly approached and shot the spider again. Another round of casualties left the colonel heartbroken. The soldiers also became somewhat bewildered. Meanwhile, a lost soldier was resting by the river. Suddenly, he seemed to hear something. In his puzzled eyes, King Kong slowly walked out. To King Kong, the lake was just a small puddle. Once King Kong turned his head, the soldier finally realized, frantically ran behind a rock. But King Kong seemed unfazed. He slowly squatted down to clean his wound. It turned out that even in battle, King Kong was not invulnerable. He cupped his hand and took a sip of water. Suddenly, he seemed to discover something. He raised his hand in preparation and reached into the water. King Kong is drinking water by the river. Suddenly he reaches into the water and pulls out a huge tentacle. When he looks closely, it turns out to be a giant octopus that King Kong has been eagerly awaiting. The octopus, caught off guard, tightens its tentacles, trying to strangle King Kong alive, but it's just the octopus's last struggle before dying. King Kong uses his hands to pull apart the octopus's tentacles, and then stomps on the octopus's head to make the meal more delicious. He then fishes out the delicious octopus legs he has been craving for from the water, but accidentally throws a piece away in his excitement. However, this doesn't stop him from enjoying the meal. The soldiers, witnessing this scene, are stunned. They watch as King Kong grabs his lunch and leaves, and then rush to report to the general in the woods. But there is no signal for communication, so the soldier can only sit there in disappointment, trying to calm himself down. But to his surprise, the tree trunk starts to move. It turns out to be a huge grasshopper monster taller than a human. The soldier, seeing this, immediately opens fire with his gun, and the grasshopper monster seems frightened by the gunfire, and actually turns and leaves. Suddenly, the soldier hears a strange sound behind him. Slowly turning his head, he sees that the tree is moving. This strange creature is called a skeleton giant lizard, and it has a deep-seated hatred for King Kong, as it was responsible for killing King Kong's parents. The skeleton giant lizard is sly and cunning, and launches an attack on King Kong head-on. But these two giant lizards are still young and no match for King Kong, who easily defeats them with 3 punches and 2 kicks. Meanwhile, humans discovered the remains of King Kong's parents. Their purpose for being there was to find the missing soldiers, but the area turns out to be the hunting grounds of the giant lizards. But the humans are unaware of the danger and leisurely take photos. A soldier casually flicks a cigarette butt, which causes a strong explosion. The loud explosion attracts the giant lizards, and the grasshopper turns and spits out a skeleton head upon closer inspection, revealing the name of one of the missing soldiers. The giant lizard then leaves, and the people hasten to evacuate. Unbeknownst to them, the doctor forgets to turn off the flash. revealing the skeleton giant lizard never actually left. As the humans scatter in fear, one brave soldier takes out a flamethrower and attacks the giant lizard relentlessly. The giant lizard, in pain, howls, and with one swipe of its tail, sends the soldier flying. The giant lizard ramps up its ferocious attack, and as it closes in on its prey, a woman tosses a lighter, igniting a massive explosion, barely taking down the giant lizard. After the battle, the colonel surveys the aftermath, devastated by the destruction. Even though the man finds the whereabouts of the missing soldier, he decides to continue forward, believing it is King Kong who caused so much devastation. Driven by rage, he is determined to seek revenge on King Kong, leading a group of soldiers to find a plane loaded with explosives. That night, they set up a trap, lighting the flames and detonating the bombs to provoke King Kong. King Kong, realizing his home has been destroyed, turns to leave. Moments later, King Kong arrives at the lake, determined not to let anyone destroy his home. Furious, King Kong rushes towards the colonel, who smirks evilly and throws a gleaming torch. Suddenly, the lake is ablaze with flames. As they poured gasoline into it, the raging fire causes King Kong excruciating pain. But King Kong, resilient, emerges once more from the flames, scooping up the scalding oil water and tossing it at the soldiers, causing them to writhe in agony. Then, with a swift slap, he crushes another soldier. But by then, King Kong has exhausted his strength and collapses into the lake. Weary, the soldiers take the opportunity to place numerous bombs, preparing to end King Kong's life. As the colonel sets the switch, another team of rescuers arrives just in time to stop the colonel's actions with their guns. As the two sides stand off with their weapons, a fully grown supergiant lizard suddenly appears, forcing everyone to flee in haste. The colonel still wants to blow up King Kong, but is swiftly punched away by King Kong. The battle between the two ancient giants is about to begin. Stay tuned for the next episode. On the cliff left a huge palm print. The one leaving this palm print is the guardian deity Kong of Skull Island. Kong is patrolling his territory. Suddenly he spots a deep bottomless pit, guiding Kong to look ahead. A crafty giant lizard crawls out from behind a corpse. Another lizard also lurks behind Kong, waiting to strike. Suddenly the lizard in front attacks, and the one behind prepares to strike. But clearly these two young lizards are no match for Kong, and Kong easily knocks them down with 3 punches and 2 kicks. Kong roars in victory, but in the next moment, a larger adult lizard emerges from the jungle. Kong doesn't give it any chance to react, grabs the lizard and slams it to the ground. The battle between two ancient creatures begins at this moment. The lizard attacks first, biting Kong's arm, then instantly jumps and pushes Kong towards the cliff, and bites Kong's arm with its big mouth. Kong is in pain and tries to punch the lizard. He then grabs the lizard's thigh, but the lizard's mouth is too strong. Kong can't do anything even with all his strength. He then changes his strategy, grabs the lizard's head and smashes it against the cliff, raises his arm and strikes, but the lizard cleverly dodges the attack. The lizard seizes the opportunity to grab Kong's arm, and performs a Thomas spin that throws Kong to the ground. Kong realizes he's no match for the lizard, raises his arm to block the attacks, then creates distance and searches for a weapon. Kong pulls out a stray tree and removes the useless branches, turning it into a weapon. He quickly charges towards the lizard. The lizard charges towards Kong. Kong is prepared and fiercely strikes the lizard's head. But the lizard's resilience is strong. The next moment it pounces on Kong. Even though Kong grabs its throat, the lizard's powerful tail prevents him from falling. The lizard takes advantage of this and hurls Kong into the water, using its tail to throw Kong away. Kong is thrown into an abandoned ship, tries to get up but is tightly trapped by an iron chain. The lizard approaches and pins Kong down, extends its mouth wanting to devour Kong. Just then, humans finally realize, and they fiercely shoot the lizard with a heavy machine gun. The lizard is distracted by the humans, while Kong manages to break free from the iron chain. He angrily roars, then looks thoughtfully at the propeller by his side. Moments later, Kong hurls the propeller at the lizard. The lizard falls to the ground. Kong then drags the lizard back to him. Having a weapon, Kong feels empowered. He locks the lizard with the iron chain. The lizard flips over as Kong throws it. Then he grabs the lizard's leg, lifts it and slams it down. Another defeated lizard. Kong then throws the lizard towards the cliff. Kong wants to take a break, but the lizard attacks again. Turns out, the crafty lizard was only pretending to be dead. It roars and lunges at Kong, wraps its tongue around Kong's arm, and swallows Kong's arm. Kong holds the lizard in pain, then uses his right hand to pull with force, ripping out the lizard's organs. The battle ends. Kong returns to the mountains, where he will continue to protect the island and all its inhabitants.